Time now for Marriage Builders, building marriages to last a lifetime. Also online at marriagebuilders.com. Now, here's Joyce Harley and Dr. Bill Harley.
Good day to you. Glad you could join us for Marriage Builders Radio. Well, in a moment, we'll address the question, how to balance undivided attention time with your spouse and time with your children. In fact, we've been asked personally, what did we do? Or we may come up with what we didn't do.
Right.
So find out what we have to say on this topic. Then we'll be answering your good email questions, all on today's Marriage Builders Radio. Joining us now for this discussion is my husband, Dr. Bill Harley, licensed clinical psychologist and best-selling author on marriage. So we have things to reveal in just a moment, right?
Personal things.
No, I won't even pursue that one, okay? But before we go there, I wanted to just start with some encouraging words. We love to hear from couples who have received a successful outcome by using your materials, the Marriage Builders materials, the principles, they've applied it. And I just thought by way of encouragement, it'd be good for you to hear, our listeners to hear. You've already read this, but just how this translated into their lives, okay? So this woman writes this. She said, my husband and I have been married for 4 years and have 2 little girls, 2 years old and 8 months. I could characterize our marriage as a great marriage, strong and centered in the Lord. But recently, we've been both feeling very frustrated in our own ways with our marriage and feeling like we weren't getting what we needed from each other, which left us both alone, hurting, and unhappy. I felt the Spirit directing me to your book, which the pastor that married us gave us for our wedding. And we started reading it together and were shocked how it was exactly what we needed. Now, let's stop. I think the book they're referring to is His Needs, Her Needs.
Her Needs, right.
Right, okay. Even the quotes you used were exact things that we have said to each other. Even one of your examples used my name. I was praying that, I was praying that this would be what we needed, and it was.
Well, I try to write in a way that tailors the examples to real people's lives.
But the name was just a coincidence.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
But when I'm going to digress even further here, because when she said that the pastor had given them a book when they got married. He married them and he gave them a book. Now, maybe it was during counseling, maybe it was after the wedding, but we have a story about a pastor that gave a couple His Needs, Her Needs on their wedding day. Why don't you tell that story?
Yeah, basically they were given the book as they were off to their honeymoon, and they brought it with them, of course, because that was how it was presented to them by the pastor. And on the honeymoon, they had a horrible fight, and they got into all kinds of trouble with each other, to the extent that they both decided that they would get a divorce as soon as they got home.
It must have really been bad.
Yes, right.
I can't believe it. But probably a great deal of disillusionment.
Right.
That this would happen. Newlywed on their honeymoon, sort of maybe even enlarged the situation.
Right. Well, there are a lot of horrible honeymoons, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And this was one of them. So they, on their way home, they saw the book sitting there. And they said, well, we may as well read this book that our pastor gave us.
Now, catch, folks, that it was on their way home.
Right.
Okay, it wasn't sitting in their home.
Yep.
It was in their possession as they loaded up their luggage and they got back into the car and saying, we made a big mistake.
Right. So the passenger, whoever was the passenger, would read it to the driver, and so that they could hear what was in the book. And by the time they got home, they decided to try some of the things that I had recommended in the book as a solution to the problems that they had had on their honeymoon. And they came up to me during a conference with their child and said to me that this book, His Needs, Her Needs, had saved their marriage on their honeymoon. And that because of the book, they were able to continue their marriage they were able to successfully address the issues that had been raised, and they were looking forward to a lifetime together, being husband and wife.
Great.
Yeah.
And I think, if I recall, they had the book there, and they had you sign it.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, it just kind of gives me goosebumps every time we reiterate that story. But these are the things that we hear. And so if you find us being dogmatic, it's because we know it works if you apply it. And that leads us then to another comment that was made from a therapist, actually. And she made this comment, and then she has a question that we're going to get into, and it has to do with the undivided attention time that I referred to at the top of the show. But she says, I really appreciate your program and believe in it. And she says, getting people, however, to actually follow it is the hard part. Just the other day, I received a phone call thanking me for introducing a couple to your material and helping them follow it. I feel that the Lord has led me to your program to truly help me be a better therapist. But let's address that issue of following through. You know something is good for you, and yet it's so hard to follow through on something, even though you know it's been recommended highly. I'm thinking to myself, I went to a physical therapist to increase the strength in one of my legs. And I know it would help if I did the exercises. But
I know what's coming.
But I motivation.
Right.
Motivation. Maybe if I lose all muscle in that leg, I'll eventually say, And, that's what happens. The dramatic thing happens, and then you get your attention. And that's what we get on this show.
Yeah, people often ask me what percentage of couples that I've counseled actually fall in love and stay in love, which is the goal. The goal is for them to have a passionate relationship with each other. And I said, when I first really started using this program, I thought that it would be maybe 70%, that there would be, failures, people that had tried, worked on it, and basically gave it their very best shot, and it just wouldn't work. I'm now convinced that it's 100%. 100% of people that follow the program will fall in love and stay in love.
If
that follow the program.
Okay, I'm sorry, you already put that in there. Okay, very good.
Basically, the program is pretty straightforward. It starts with the assumption that everything you do affects each other. Everything you do will affect each other. Everything you do either makes love bank deposits or it makes withdrawals. And you have to pay a whole lot of attention to both of those things. You have to pay attention to what you're doing that makes deposits so that you can do more of it and make sure you don't stop doing it. And then you have to pay attention to what makes withdrawals, and you have to stop the withdrawals. You have to stop behavior that is causing the other person to be unhappy.
But does the hurt have to be so bad that you finally pay attention to, let's give this a try and let's now apply it? I mean, it's like me with a physical therapist. Do I have to lose all strength in my left leg in order for me to start doing these exercises?
Well, the problem with marriage and being in love is that it's a negative feedback loop. The pain that you experience is motivation for you to then do the exercises. But in marriage, when you lose your feeling of love, you're less motivated to restore it. See, that's what I'm up against in working with my couples, is that they're not thinking in terms of restoring their love for each other. They're thinking about getting a divorce, getting out of there for good, and feeling that they're never going to want to be with this other person again. And so trying to motivate a person to fall back into love when they have lost their love, I think is harder than doing the exercises when you're in great pain, because it's almost like being out of love is a disincentive to want to be in love. And so our job, we have a tough job here as marriage counselors to try to encourage people that a lot of people just don't want to do it. And yet, if they do, they're going to be very, very happy that they did. And they will be very, very successful in their marriage and in their lives if they follow it.
Very good. Well, now we are going to get to that question then. How did Dr. Harley and I manage to spend time with our children when they were little, when Dr. Harley was getting his PhD, and he said he came home and he just dated me? Well, what about the kids? Well, that question has come up, and we're going to be addressing that on the other side. So stay with us. Join the thousands of couples who have learned step by step how to experience a meaningful and fulfilling love relationship. They did this by completing Dr. Harley's online seminar and home study courses, His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. Here's how it works. You'll begin by watching an online seminar where Dr. Harley will help you identify the problems you face in your marriage. Then, the home study courses will show you how to solve those marital problems in a systematic way. Go to marriagebuilders.com homepage and click the tab Courses, Seminar, and Accountability. Look for program number 2 for a description of the seminar and the courses. Then follow the instructions on that page to place your order. Start the program the day the package arrives. And if you're not completely satisfied, send it back to us within 30 days, and you'll receive a full refund, including shipping charges. Restore passion to your marriage. Order today. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So glad you've joined us for this hour of Marriage Builders Radio. Well, we had a little bit of an infomercial there at the top. But, you know, it came out of a response to communication that somebody had sent our way, and we're so happy to relate success stories. And I still am getting back to, and we're not going to linger on this one, but Dr. Margie is the one who wrote us and is getting the couples to do the program.
Right.
And I guess the question, the answer is, it has to be the individual that has the motivation to do it.
Well, in my section on the website called Courses, Seminar, and Accountability, I talk about 3 programs that we have. One is a training program where you're on your own. You buy His Needs, Her Needs, Love Busters, and 5 Steps to Romantic Love. The whole thing will cost you less than $30. And you start working on it. And basically it gives you the guidelines, and it gives you the lessons that you need in order to fall in love and stay in love. And then there is people who can't motivate themselves to do it. So we go to program 2, which is the home study courses, where Dr. Harley does, in fact, try to motivate people through audio cassettes. So what you do is you listen to me encouraging you to do the lesson for that day, you know. And
but there's no scolding, there's no shaming,
it's
right?
the same material, same books, same everything.
Did you hear what I said?
Right.
There's no scolding, there's no shaming?
Well, I don't know. Maybe some people might interpret it that way. But what you do
find out, right?
What you do before that is you go through my online seminar, which is about 8 hours long. It's a long deal. And then you fill out questionnaires, and this is all designed to motivate you to do something that is hard to do, especially when you're not in love. Now, let's suppose that isn't working. Then we have an accountability program.
We bring out the big guns, right?
Live person directs you to trying to do the right thing. And generally speaking, the people who sign up for our accountability program are people who have trouble following the program on their own, and my CD.
I would fall into that category,
help.
Yes, because I went to the physical therapist every week, and she was the one that kept me saying, yes, I really do need to do this, and yes, I will be better if I do these exercises,
right.
You know. So anyway, all right. Well, with that said, let's go then to Dr. Margie, who has another question. She says, you explained, and she's talking to you, Dr. Harley, how when your children were young, you made time for each other, and you have expressed this many times. My question is, how did you, Dr. Harley, manage to spend time with your children too? I just get asked that question a lot, and you never mention it, so I thought I would ask.
Okay, well, my memory is different than yours. And so I will go to you for the accurate.
I was just going to say for accuracy.
For accuracy. But I will say this, that throughout my entire life, I've been a workaholic. I mean, I had a job when I was 8 years old. And I worked 35 hours a week when I was going through high school. So I basically am a worker. I enjoy working. I enjoy having a job. I enjoy getting something accomplished. So when you and I were married, I was in graduate school, and you supported me for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had our first child, Jennifer. And then you quit your job,
Mm-hmm.
and now it was up to me to support the family and finish my PhD. So while I was supporting the family and finishing my PhD, you were raising both of our children. And I finished my PhD when our second was
Born.
about
Right.
a year old,
Right.
just born. So the basic feeling that I had about those years when the children were very young is that I really wasn't at home very much. I spent long hours working, getting my studying done. I was under a great deal of stress, wanting to make sure I got my PhD, make sure I finished. And there were a lot of tests I had to take, and so I don't remember helping you much with the children. Do you have that same memory?
Well, this isn't the point. You keep going on to what you usually say. So what you would do, we'll come back to that in a minute,
right.
okay?
Okay. But during that time, I was sure to include you in my life. And so I would call you up and I would say, Joyce, find a babysitter. I've got a couple hours here. Let's go out together. Let's go out and have some fun. And
I was your reward, is what I was.
You
Yes.
were my reward
yeah.
for all the hard work.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I could get very depressed about all the work that I was doing. But by spending a couple hours with you, I was all cheered up. Everything was happy. And I could get on with what I was doing. So basically what I did was I worked to support the family. I was working on my PhD. And I was having fun with you. So that made us a couple that was in love. I mean, we were both in love throughout that entire time when it could have been a disaster if I had ignored you. So I don't know that I did much to help you with the children, but
okay,
we
now
sure
we'll
spent
get to that.
time.
Okay.
We sure spent time
Right.
with each other.
Right. And of course, folks, we had no concept of this concept at that point.
Right.
And I think Dr. Harley often brings it up when we're talking about the 15 hours of undivided attention, is because we were doing it before we knew it should be a rule in every marriage.
Right.
And so he uses that as an illustration how we maintained our romantic love during very difficult times in our lives. New children in our lives, a PhD program, you're working, new financial issues and all. So regarding the kids, you're right. But then again, how old were they? They were, let's think, 2, 3, 1. I mean,
Yeah,
they
right.
no, none of them were. Of the 2 were above 3 years old.
Right.
And they loved Dad. You gave them your attention when you were there. At that point, quality family time was not essential for you to bond with your kids. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that part of the problem that women have when their children are that age is they want the support of their husbands.
But you see, I had your support.
And that's the point. You and I spent plenty of time together,
support,
but
exactly.
It wasn't with the children.
Right. I had your support.
Mm-hmm.
When I was with you, they were well taken care of with
Right.
a babysitter who begged me, let me take care of the kids. She loved the kids. And so I had time away. And I wasn't left alone to do it all on my own. That never was the feeling. And I think that is something very important to realize, that that's what you're reaching for.
Right.
The support.
Yeah, I think a lot of women, they in later years are very resentful about the fact that they felt abandoned during those years.
So to answer Dr. Margie's question that she gets asked, what do we do regarding the children? Later on, then, when they got older, you had more time. You
Right.
had your degree. You had regular employment. And you'd come home, we'd have dinner together, we'd play games together, and that's when it started. So I'm glad she brought that up, because it made it sound like that's the way we ran our entire family life, and that wasn't the case at all. And even when you were running all those clinics, we still had family time together.
Right.
You know, we'd do church, we'd have game night, and all went well. So that was never forfeited after the graduate degree was received. Okay, on with more of your questions on the other side of today's Marriage Builders Radio. Do you and your spouse know what to do but just can't get yourselves to do it? If motivation is your problem, try the Marriage Builders online program. It comes complete with an accountability coach to help motivate you every step of the way. First, you view the online seminar where Dr. Harley will explain his basic concepts and help you identify and organize your problems so you can resolve them in a systematic way. Then, your accountability coach will guide you through the solutions to those problems as you complete Dr. Harley's home study courses, His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. Your coach will communicate with you throughout the program by email and telephone whenever you have questions or need encouragement. And your progress will be evaluated by your coach. For more information about the Marriage Builders online program, click the tab Courses, Seminar, and Accountability, and then look for program number 3 for a complete description. Restore passion to your marriage. Register today. Remember, you can email your questions or any comments or any topics you've come across you'd like to hear Dr. Harley's response by sending it to marriagebuilders.com. Let's start again. mbradio@marriagebuilders.com.
There you
Isn't
go.
that funny? I say that all the time, and how if you lose the sequencing, it can come out all wrong. So that's mbradio@marriagebuilders.com. Include your phone number if you'd like to consider being a caller, and your mailing address. Because once we've addressed your email, then we want to send you some reading material that will help you in the solution to your situation. mbradio@marriagebuilders.com. One more thing I wanted you to add regarding the whole discussion of 15 hours of undivided attention with you and your spouse, and then 15 hours of family time. During the times when they were, just up to 3 years of age, and you were working your PhD, you made a comment when we were discussing this before the show, that it was important that our love stay alive, really for the children's sake.
Right. The most important thing I could have done for them at that time is to keep our marriage vibrant when I was under more pressure than I've ever been through in my entire life. And I think that's the point that I've often made, and that is that I'm not opposed to people setting high standards for themselves, high goals. But in the process of doing that, don't neglect your marriage. Don't neglect meeting each other's emotional needs. So I don't care what your goals are in life. If the goals prevent you from meeting each other's emotional needs, then there's a sense in which trying to achieve those goals is going to ruin your life. Because if you have a bad marriage, you're going to find that whatever job you might have isn't going to be very fulfilling. However many children you have are going to be a struggle for you. Everything in life is going to be more difficult if your marriage is difficult. On the other hand, if you have a great marriage, there's a whole host of things that can be a problem, and it's not going to be depressing to you. You're going to be happy in spite of the fact that you have these other problems, because the things you need the most are being accomplished.
I'm thinking of the little word phrase on a plaque. It says the best thing you can do for your children is to love their mother or father.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well said. And let's move on now, and let's get to your good questions. We're going to go to Jessica in Texas. In essence, she's wanting to know how to handle her husband's claims. Well, let's find out what they are. She says, sometimes the discussions between my husband and I rise to the level of an argument. When this happens, he tells me I am manipulative, narcissistic, sociopathic, and that I have borderline personality disorder. Now, he has accused her in the past of...
I'd say that's pretty disrespectful.
I know. I was waiting for you to respond. And I wrote down here in parentheses, she goes on to say...
It's a love buster.
Yeah, he has accused her in the past of manipulating the marriage builder's principles. Okay? Now, that really perks our attention.
Right.
I try my very best to walk away from arguments. When I do, he starts reading things on forums and listening to programs on the internet about borderline personality disorder and will tell me that I match the description exactly. I do believe in PPD to an extent. My mother is someone who I believe does fit that criteria. I used to and cannot keep friends for very long because of the way. No, let me start again. I used to.
She struggles with her job.
No. I used to listen. Oh. I used to believe I fit the criteria for BPD too, which is how my husband knows about it. But after listening to your program, I got the impression that as long as I stay within the bounds of the policy of joint agreement and avoid love busters, our marriage can turn out fine. Not only that, but I began to believe that if I had the capacity to negotiate in a level-headed way as well as follow these rules, maybe I don't have a personality disorder at all. I can see from my husband's point of view that I do have a lot of sensitivities. But the more I listen to your program, the more it sounds to me like this is common for women. What is the best thing for me to do? Should I take his claims seriously? They seem disrespectful to me. Aha, the very thing you said at the top of this.
That is exactly the way I would put it.
Because of that, should I ignore it?
Profoundly disrespectful.
Yeah, should I ignore it? Now, what is his business? Why would he think that she's manipulating the marriage builder's principles?
Well, I would imagine that he is not getting something he wants from her. And so he uses, and people do that. People use the policy of joint agreement to create a solution for themselves that is not a solution for the other guy. Somebody mentioned the other day that the default condition of the policy of joint agreement, do nothing, may be exactly what one spouse wants to do. Mm-hmm. They want to do nothing about it. But the point that I make is that, as a matter of fact, there's a chapter in He Wins, She Wins that deals with that. What if your spouse is happy doing nothing? Well, the point is that if you are in conflict over something, you shouldn't go ahead with what either person wants. You should do nothing while you are discussing the solution of the problem.
So it's an active do nothing.
Yes, and I would say that this should be a daily occurrence. In other words, every day you're trying to brainstorm, trying to think, okay, what can we do? So you don't want to stay in this limbo of doing nothing for any length of time. What you want to do is you want to resolve the conflict using your creativity to come up with a solution, something where you are doing something, but it's something that they both want to do. And so so that's a very important point, that my policy of joint agreement can prevent you from doing what you want to do, but it doesn't stop there. As soon as we have a conflict that is not being resolved, then you and I need to discuss this daily until we find a solution to the problem.
So Jessica's husband may feel that she enjoys the do-nothing state.
Or he does. That's what he wants.
The manipulation would be to stay in the do-nothing state where she likes to be, and he would like to move on. And so that's manipulating the marriage builder's principle.
That could
you follow me?
Right.
Now, another way I think that, and I don't know that Jessica's doing this, but I've heard of this, where you can use the marriage builder's principles as a hammer, as a weapon almost, and you could be extremely disrespectful.
Well, you can use, you're not using the marriage builder's principle to be disrespectful, because then you'd be violating the marriage builder's principles.
I know, but you can take it and use it as Dr. Harley says. In fact, we've heard that. One woman said, I don't want to hear one more phrase that Dr. Harley says, you know. So you got to be careful when you have the answers, okay? When you have a good plan, that if it's not being received.
Yeah, I want to talk some more about her personality disorder
You got to be diplomatic about how you deliver it. Okay, we'll pick it up on the other side. Do you and your spouse know what to do but just can't get yourselves to do it? If motivation is your problem, try the Marriage Builders online program. It comes complete with an accountability coach to help motivate you every step of the way. First, you view the online seminar where Dr. Harley will explain his basic concepts and help you identify and organize your problems so you can resolve them in a systematic way. Then, your accountability coach will guide you through the solutions to those problems problems as you complete Dr. Harley's home study courses, His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. Your coach will communicate with you throughout the program by email and telephone whenever you have questions or need encouragement, and your progress will be evaluated by your coach. For more information about the Marriage Builders online program, click the tab Courses, Seminar, and Accountability, and then look for program number 3 for a complete description. Restore passion to your marriage. Register today.
Welcome back to Marriage Builders, building marriages to last a lifetime. Here's Joyce Harley and Dr. Bill Harley.
Well, let's hear what Dr. Harley says. I laughed and I thought, you can see where a spouse who is really on board and says, I got the answer to what is happening in our marriage, in our relationship. And, oh, honey, we got to do these things because Dr. Harley, you can see how the other person, if they're more reluctant regarding all this, they're going to resent the constant reference to these quotes.
What you have to understand is that the first 3 love busters that I talk about in my book have to do with abuse and control. And abuse and control are a big problem in marriage. So when you're trying to get your spouse to follow these ideas that I have about making love bank deposits and avoiding withdrawals, you can't do it in a way that the other person interprets as abusive and controlling. And so the basic question is, how do you communicate to your spouse these ideas that mean so much to you?
Okay, but I can see it. There's another category, enthusiastic. In other words, you found something, a product that is fantastic. It's what you've been looking for all your life. And you found it and you want to share this with your spouse. So I think enthusiasm also has to be addressed.
Well, yeah. And if all it is enthusiasm, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, enthusiasm can be overbearing. It can be very...
Really?
Oh, yes.
Am I overly enthusiastic sometimes?
Well, we've had this discussion. Well, let's just a little homely what's the word I want? Illustration. There we go. You have a food item in front of you.
Food. There we go.
There we go. Enthusiasm. And you put it in your mouth. You go, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. And every bite you say that. And I say, enough with the enthusiasm. Okay, honey, I'm glad you're enjoying it, but let's not say it every bite.
So too much enthusiasm
exactly.
is a bad
No,
thing.
but I know that even people have come to me about, say, a grocery store or something that they have discovered and they think is fantastic, and they just can't. I feel like saying, just give me the facts, and I'll make the decision myself.
That's a good illustration of what is called a U-shaped function.
Oh, my
U-shaped
goodness.
function. Basically,
I didn't realize I was giving you that.
With absolutely no enthusiasm, people would say that tells me that you don't really care, that you're not interested, you're not willing to work on anything. And then as the enthusiasm increases, it's very motivating and makes the person really want to help. And then with even more enthusiasm, it becomes demotivating. It's an inverted U-shaped function. There are a lot of examples of that in life.
Yeah.
Where there's a moderate level of various things is the ideal as opposed to either extreme.
So with enthusiasm, one has to be careful that they just speak from their own personal experience and not insist that the other person have to do it.
And on the topic of everything we do affects each other, the fact that you're telling me that my great enthusiasm is actually demotivating, but it's irritating, it's annoying, you see, is important feedback for me.
Yeah,
see?
I know.
And now, what if I were to say to you, Joyce, you just have to accept me the way I am. I'm just one of these enthusiastic guys that does this sort of thing. What I'd be doing is I would be ignoring the fact that I'm making love bank withdrawals every time I comment on the food I happen to be eating at the time. So what I do instead is I learn from that experience, And so the next time I have something that I've created, which is often, I kind of filter what I am saying to accommodate your reactions to things.
This is good, and a few lip smacks is okay.
Okay.
But not continuously, right? Okay. Now, back to Jessica in Texas. What are you going to say to her here? She said, what is the best thing for me to do? Should I take his claims seriously? Now, he's accusing her of all these mental disorders.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about borderline personality disorder, because a lot of people are diagnosed with that. The first thing I would say is that no spouse should ever give their other spouse a mental health diagnosis, ever. So basically, for me, who is a clinical psychologist who studies emotional disorders, I am licensed to make diagnoses, and I am licensed to come up with treatment strategies. I mean, I not only am I trained to do this, but I'm licensed to do it, okay?
And you get paid to do it.
And
yes.
I would not think of doing that with you.
Unless I asked you.
Even that would be risky.
You would refer me to someone else.
Yes,
okay.
I would.
All right.
So basically, for me to give you a diagnosis of any kind.
Especially unsolicited.
Well, even if it were solicited, I think it would be risky. I don't think that Jessica's husband should ever tell her that she has any disorder of any kind. I'd say that's very disrespectful. For her to get that from a licensed psychologist like myself, that would be okay. In other words, she's coming to me, she's saying, what am I? Tell me what you would call me.
Well, then the question would be, should she go to a licensed clinical psychologist and get it settled once and for all?
She could, and I have had people do that. They actually go, and their spouse is telling them that they are this and that and the other thing, and then they go to the therapist, and the professional person gives them some kind of a diagnosis, and then hopefully from that diagnosis there would be some sort of a treatment plan along with it as to what the person could do.
But I got to say, though, that Jessica's husband is going from extremes. He's going from manipulative to sociopathic.
He is simply being disrespectful.
I think he's just throwing him out
very
there.
Very disrespectful. So I'd say that's a very, very important point. Now, let me talk a little bit about the topic of borderline personality disorder. I am not a fan of that diagnosis. Matter of fact, I'm not a fan of personality disorders, period. Personality disorders have been tossed from the latest version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychological Disorders, DSM, and it is now 5 or 6. I think it's 6 now. They used to have personality disorders in it. They don't now. Really, reason is, first of all, it is very hard to come up with a personality disorder that 3 diagnosticians would agree on when they would see the same person.
Interesting.
It's very, very difficult to diagnose. Number 2 is there are no solutions for personality disorders. Basically, what a personality disorder is an ingrained predisposition. So everything you see on the list of problems that people that have a personality disorder have, these are things that are embedded in their brain that they can't change. So there are no solutions to any of this. To me, if you have no solutions, there's no point in mentioning it. Now, in her particular case, I would say that she's emotionally reactive. That's something that all diagnosticians...
She talked about having a lot of sensitivities.
She could agree.
Yeah.
Everybody would agree with that. So what do you do if you're emotionally reactive? Well, we talk a lot about procedures that help cut back on the reactivity, relaxation techniques, being able to look at things from a distance instead of close up. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do to cut back on your emotional reactivity.
Jessica, I hope this conversation has helped, but you know the routine. Get back to us if you have further questions. We'll be back in just a minute. Have you been to the forum? The MarriageBuilders.com forum? It's a community where people come with their marriage problems and receive direction, support, and encouragement from those who have solved those problems in their own marriages. They did this by using Dr. Harley's Marriage Builders concepts. You can view the daily interaction without registering, but to join in the discussion, you need to register. If you have any questions about registering or anything else about the forum, the administrator will help you by email. Your identity is kept completely confidential, and there's no charge. Just about every marital problem imaginable has been addressed on the forum. So don't hesitate to describe your problem to those who can help. Whether your problems are simple or complicated, new, or have been going on for years, the Marriage Builders Forum can help you find solutions. Are you looking for direction, support, and encouragement in your marriage? Check out the Marriage Builders Forum. Welcome back to Marriage Builders Radio. Well, let's continue on getting answers for you, emails that have been sent our way via mbradio@marriagebuilders.com. Pauline is writing us, and she tells us she's lost and heartbroken. And here's why. She said, I can't believe that I just found out my husband of 25 years was having an affair. And then she told us that, and I'm going to summarize a major portion that she wrote. She told us that they certainly had their share of problems in their marriage, and she gave specifics. And that's what took up a lot of space here that I will summarize. They had tough jobs, financial woes, and intimacy, and even a stillborn child early on. They now have 3 lovely children. Then she goes on to say, but we seriously talked all this over a year ago, and he said that last summer was the best summer he had ever spent with me. Okay? So even with all of these difficulties that they've had throughout their marriage, he said last summer was the best summer he had ever spent with her. And she goes on to say, his affair began at the end of last summer. I don't understand, and I'm heartbroken. The affair came to an end when the other woman's husband found the love emails and blew it wide open. And I put in parentheses here, note the results of exposure.
Exposure is a good thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So, he loves her, but said he will never contact her again. He told me everything that happened, which has torn me to pieces. How will I ever love him? During his affair, he could not get enough of me, always touching me and desperate to be with me intimately. I believe he was using me to release his sexual tensions because he swears that they never had intercourse, but did everything else, claiming that even though they love each other, they weren't ready to handle the guilt of infidelity. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid you did have an affair.
Right, exactly.
Because emotional and physical, they are on the same par.
Right,
They are both infidelity.
Yep.
So she goes on. She says, please help me with any advice. I'm so lost.
Yeah, basically what it boils down to is that he did not take extraordinary precautions to avoid an affair, and those who don't take extraordinary precautions, who have relationships with other women, even if their marriage is in good shape, even if they're getting their emotional needs met in their marriage, they can fall in love with somebody else, with another woman. And so I would imagine that what he was doing was having a good time with his wife and then having a good time with this other woman. And he wants them both. So the feeling that I have about a situation like that is that the solution is, first of all, as we described, the exposure. It should be all the children should know about it if they don't already know. He should never see or talk to this other woman again. They might have to leave the area. He might have to quit his job. The question is, what can we do to prevent any contact with this other woman? You have to put that in place. And then the question is, are there other risks out there? In other words, does he have friends of the opposite sex where he could develop these kinds of relationships? So what he has to do is put a stop to whatever it is that got this started in the first place. And as she mentioned, they were improving their relationship in their marriage, and it happened even then.
That's the irony of it.
So I would say that what probably has happened in this situation could be that he has had other affairs. Now, I don't want to muddy the water, but the fact is that he might have developed some habits. He had a bad marriage, and so he developed some habits of flirting with other women and getting involved, and this is the one he finally got caught doing. And so the real question that I would have is what's going on before this.
I love the idea, though, that this is a great example of things going well in a marriage, and in her case, she says finally, and then he can still be attracted to someone else. I mean, this is to be underscored to our listeners.
But I think he also has habits that make it easy for him to attract other women to him.
Could be.
See,
now,
that we would need to address.
How do we deal? He told me everything that happened, which has torn me to pieces. How will I ever love him?
Well, this is going to be a tough assignment, and it starts with the question: do you even want to? And I do not give advice to people like Pauline as to whether or not she should get a divorce.
That's interesting to just stop here for a moment, because that really is the crossroads.
Right.
That we ask the person, you can go left or you can go right.
Mm-hmm.
And you decide which way you want to go. And if it's right, then we will help you, because that's the road that will be pulling your marriage back together and building an affair-proof marriage.
If you want to be in love with him, I have a program that will get you to fall in love with him. But first you have to make the decision, do you even want to be with this man? And once that decision is made, then I say, okay, you got to follow a program, whether you feel like it or not. Now, that's a big part of my whole idea of restoring romantic love, because at this particular point, I'm not sure she really would want to restore romantic love. She would say, okay, I want to be married, but I don't necessarily want to restore romantic love. I'd say, well, that isn't going to work. I mean, then you lose on both ends. So the feeling that I have about her is, you make a decision to save your marriage. Okay, the next step, after you have put extraordinary precautions in place, where there's no risk of him ever having another affair again because of these extraordinary precautions, then what you need to do is to develop a relationship with him that was very similar to the one you had that summer before he had the affair. I mean, if he says that this is the best summer he's ever had, the question is, was it the best summer for her too? You know, and if it was, they were headed for a romantic love relationship. And so what I would suggest is that they go back to a lot of the things they did that summer and try to restore the romantic experiences that they had. And over a period of, I would say, 2 years, she would be in love with him again.
All right. And we're going to be sending Pauline and her husband a complimentary copy of Surviving an Affair. Right. Okay. Now, Doris is writing us, and we addressed her email, and it had to do with her husband having an affair, okay? And she said, in a nutshell, the forgiving isn't the problem for me. It's eliminating all the images I have and the fact that he allowed himself to love and get close to someone else. So please help me get through this. Do you see what we're talking about here?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, first of all, in a nutshell, the forgiving isn't the problem. Well, we're not talking about
forgiving.
Okay?
Yeah, don't.
Okay.
See, the forgiving itself to me is unrealistic at this point, because of what we call just compensation. You see, just compensation means that he can make up for what he did by meeting her emotional needs, by avoiding love busters, by making decisions with her, things that would be good for their marriage.
Now, may I add, when we talk about the unfaithful spouse doing these things, we are also not saying it, but we're including the betrayed spouse.
Exactly. She has to cooperate with the whole program, which means she has to do the same thing. So he has to put these extraordinary precautions into place, and then he has to meet her emotional needs, but then she has to meet his. And they have to avoid love busters, both together. And coming out of this experience is going to mean that, again, reviewing what we said at the beginning of the show, everything they do is going to affect each other. Everything they do. And you want to make sure that you're making deposits and you're not making withdrawals. Now, she says that, yeah, but every time I think about it and I see in my head what he did, and I have visions of this horrible experience, I can't get them out of my head. I would say that over time, what you'll find is that they will slowly dissipate.
Okay, now let me add quickly something I was going to bring up. She says therapy has been a lot of what he likes to call rehashing. but I call it laying out all on the line. He can't understand why I would want to hear all the details if it just hurts me. But we're saying once the facts have been put on the table,
that could be one of their problems. Is
don't
that they
revisit it.
Right, they keep
and
revisiting it.
And as he says, rehashing.
Yeah, and I would say that the more you talk about something, the more the past becomes the present. So if you really want to avoid the images and you want to avoid thinking about it, don't talk about it. Now that's a strange thing for a psychologist to say, because a lot of the therapy that's out there says that the more you talk about something, the better you feel about it. That isn't always the case. Now there is a sense in which flooding is a technique that can work in some cases. For example, when I've handled rape cases in the past, I have had the person sit at the place they were raped and talk about what happened for hours and hours and hours, days and days and days. And the rape victim finally comes away with no nightmares and no reaction to that room. They don't feel that this room is a place I can't be, I can't work in. And so so this is called flooding. Very few people are willing to put themselves through that particular procedure. What they do is they talk about it here and there. That actually does the opposite. It makes you think about it more often, and it keeps you thinking about it. You'll never get over it that way. So by just ignoring the thoughts, just saying, I'm going to try not to think about it. I'm certainly not going to talk about it. Actually could turn out to be the very best thing she would do for these images that she has.
Doris, I'm glad you got back to us, and I encourage everyone, once we've addressed your email, if you have any further questions or just a reaction that you'd like to share with us, then do get back to us, mbradio@marriagebuilders.com. Well, our time is gone now for our radio listeners, but to our internet listeners, we do have a few more things we want to talk about. So stay with us. I'm Joyce Harley, along with Dr. Bill Harley, and we'll do it again, Marriage Builders Radio, building marriages to last a lifetime. Have you been to marriagebuilders.com yet? Its purpose is to help you resolve your marital conflicts in a way that creates romantic love. If you both follow the advice this website provides, you'll solve your problems and be in love with each other in no time. If you're new to marriagebuilders.com, before you read anything else, you should take the tour. Click Site Tour on the home page, and you'll have a complete overview in a matter of minutes. Then go to Basic Concepts. That's because they provide the logical basis for all Dr. Harley's solutions to marital problems, and it's completely free of charge. If you only have a few minutes and you want a quick overview, read the first topic in that section called A Summary of Dr. Harley's Basic Concepts. Take in Dr. Harley's articles and Q&A columns, interact with others on the forum, and learn to become an expert in making your marriage the best it can be. That's marriagebuilders.com. Well, we're in the final moments of our hour today together, and I'm glad you've joined us. And we're going to now finish it off with an email from Sandy, and I've entitled it Unrealistic. Okay, so here we go. What if you consider your spouse's highest emotional need to be unrealistic? We have children, and my husband wants sex 2 times a day.
Okay, there's a
and
difference.
And she's saying,
yeah, right.
You gotta be kidding.
Right. Now, they're quite frankly, there's a difference between having an emotional need and how you meet the emotional need. And the question is, does he really need sex twice a day? I would say no. He doesn't need sex twice a day.
But he wants it.
Yeah, but what
now,
you want isn't
him,
the same as a need.
Yeah, but try to convince him. He said, you're my wife, and you can do this for me, and I want it.
Yeah, right. And like I say, a want is different than a need. And this is where I talk about needs. Sure, he has an emotional need for sexual fulfillment, and she can meet that need for him by doing things that work for her, which isn't having sex twice a day.
Yeah, it's got to work both ways. That's true, right?
Exactly. So the basic idea is that if he wants eventually to have a wife who doesn't want to have sex at all, keep it up, keep trying to make her have sex with him twice a day, and she'll eventually get to a point where she is so turned off by the whole experience that she won't even want to face it ever.
Well, we could put it like, I have a need to go shopping. And so because I have that need, and, I'd like to do it twice a day. Absolutely. That'd be fun. You have to come along with me.
With the internet, that's even possible.
No, you're not going to get off that easy, okay? No, I mean, it's a good, you can apply it to everything.
Right.
As far as want and need. And the other person has to be enjoying the fulfillment of that need, or you have to accommodate each other.
Yeah. Now, what we often will get couples in various stages of this process, where in the beginning of the marriage, the wife would fulfill the husband's need for sex exactly how he wanted it met. And she felt, well, we'll see how this works. I'll give it a shot and see. And his approach to sex is so self-centered, so self-serving, so disinterested in what works for her, that he becomes demanding and he's disrespectful about her reaction. He even gets angry about things when it isn't the way he wants. And so little by little, she shows less and less interest in something that he needs, until finally, by the time they get to see us, she is unwilling to even consider having sex with her husband. And she has a sexual aversion. Now, we often get people at various stages of this. Sometimes we get people in the very beginning, and they say, we've just been married, and we're having sex twice a day, and we're having sex in the park, whatever, And I warn them that isn't going to work for the long haul. And that they are going to have to start thinking about doing things that are mutually agreeable.
Well, wasn't the park mutually agreeable?
No.
Oh, so you didn't make that clear.
She does this.
Okay.
She does this because she feels that this is something he needs, and this is my responsibility as his wife.
Okay.
So I've got to do this no matter how I feel about it, and over time I'll adjust. I will eventually adjust to this. And she doesn't adjust, but his expectations stay the same. You did this for me then, you should be able to do it now. Now she's beginning to say, well, Dr. Harley said that, I should only make love in a way that works for me and you, which means I'm not going to be making love twice a day. And you see, that would sustain their sexual relationship.
Is this a hard concept to sell? In other words,
well, it is for men who only think about themselves. I mean, this is my basic
Boy, that's
feeling.
pretty blunt. Yeah.
And this is true with the meeting of all emotional needs. The question is, if you need your spouse to meet an emotional need, you got to be concerned about how the spouse feels about meeting that need, regardless of what it is. Because to the extent that you try to accommodate your spouse's predispositions in that area, you're going to get that emotional need met a whole lot easier. So if a person says, well, you're married to me, so you have to do this because this is one of your responsibilities, I would say that in a global sense, it's your responsibility. We got to figure out how we're going to do this, but it has to be done with mutual enthusiasm. And this is especially true with sex, because I think that what can often happen is that a person can become so aggressive in their wanting their need for sex to be met that it completely turns off their spouse.
Well said, and I encourage you to pick up Dr. Harley's book, His Needs, Her Needs, if you want to read more about this and meeting of other needs as well. Well, our time is gone, and we're so glad, like I said earlier, so glad that you could join us today, and we will do it again. Remember, email mbradio@marriagebuilders.com with any questions you may have. I'm Joyce Harley, along with Dr. Bill Harley, and this is Marriage Builders Radio, building marriages that last a lifetime. Join the thousands of couples who have learned step by step how to experience a meaningful and fulfilling love relationship. They did this by completing Dr. Harley's online seminar and home study courses, His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. Here's how it works. You'll begin by watching an online seminar where Dr. Harley will help you identify the problems you face in your marriage. Then, the home study courses will show you how to solve those marital problems in a systematic way. Go to marriagebuilders.com homepage and click the tab Courses, Seminar, and Accountability. Look for program number 2 for a description of the seminar and the courses. Then follow the instructions on that page to place your order. Start the program the day the package arrives. And if you're not completely satisfied, send it back to us within 30 days, and you'll receive a full refund, including shipping charges. Restore passion to your marriage. Order today. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain.